Have you ever had to choose between your pride and the life of someone you love? Have you ever watched the people who were supposed to protect you turn their backs when you needed them most? Let me tell you about my family, and exactly how much a life is worth to them. We don't have that kind of money lying around. Sarah, you need to be realistic about this. My father stood in the doorway of my apartment, arms crossed, his face stern. Behind him, my mother nodded along, her mouth pressed into a thin line of disapproval. I stood there listening to my 7-year-old son, Leo, asleep in the next room. His breathing was labored even with the oxygen machine running. The medical bills were spread across my kitchen table, like accusatory evidence of my failures. $78,000. That was the amount the specialist quoted for the. My name is Sarah, and I am 31 years old. I live in Columbus, Ohio, working as a middle school science teacher while raising Leo on my own. His father walked out when Leo was diagnosed at age 3. He couldn't handle having a sick kid, and I had been fighting this battle alone ever since. My parents lived 20 minutes away in their comfortable suburban house, the same house where my younger sister, Chloe, still had her childhood bedroom preserved like a shrine. Realistic, I repeated, my voice cracking. My son might die without this treatment. The doctor said he has maybe 6 months if we don't act now. My mother stepped forward, touching my father's arm in that way she did to soften his message without contradicting him. Honey, we understand this is difficult, but we've already helped you so much over the years. We paid for 3 of his surgeries. We can't just empty our retirement accounts. I'm not asking you to empty them. I'm asking for a loan. I will pay you back every penny. I will get a second job. I will do whatever it takes. My father shook his head. Sarah, you are barely keeping your head above water as it is. How would you pay us back? Be sensible. There are payment plans, medical financing options. You should look into those. I had looked into them. The financing companies wanted interest rates that would bury me for decades, and most. We can't do it, Sarah. I am sorry, but we have to think about our own future too. They left shortly after. I walked into Leo's room and sat beside his bed, listening to the steady hiss of the oxygen machine. His small chest rose and fell unevenly. He looked so peaceful in sleep, unaware that his own grandparents had just sealed his fate. I started a crowdfunding campaign that night, sharing photos of Leo's bright smile. Friends and colleagues donated, but after 2 weeks I had only raised a fraction of what we needed. It wasn't even close to enough. Then came the phone call from Chloe. My sister's voice was breathless with excitement. Sarah, I have the most amazing news. Marcus proposed. We are getting married. I tried to muster enthusiasm despite the heaviness in my chest. That's wonderful, Chloe. Congratulations. I know, right? And Mom and Dad are being so incredibly generous. They are paying for the whole wedding. They said we can have whatever we want. No budget limits. Marcus and I are thinking a destination wedding. Maybe Italy or the south of France. My hand tightened around the phone. No budget limits? None. Dad said this is his little girl's special day, and nothing is too good. I stood in my tiny apartment, medical bills stacked on every surface, my son fighting for every breath in the next room, and listened to my sister gush about her unlimited wedding budget. Something cold and hard formed in my chest, a seed of understanding that would take root and grow. The months that followed were a blur of hospital visits and mounting despair. I maxed out every credit card, took out personal loans at predatory interest rates, and sold everything of value I possessed. I moved from my 1-bedroom apartment to a studio to save on rent. Through it all, Chloe's wedding plans progressed like an unstoppable force of nature. Every phone call somehow circled back to the wedding. My parents were consumed with it, attending tastings at 5-star restaurants, discussing floral arrangements that cost more than my monthly salary. Chloe was the golden child, the one who did everything right. She graduated college with honors and dated the right kind of men from good families. I was the one who chose teaching instead of a lucrative career, who got pregnant by a man who turned out to be worthless, who couldn't even keep her son healthy. Leo's condition continued to decline. The experimental treatment was no longer an option. We had missed the window. The doctors shifted to palliative care, focusing on keeping him comfortable. I took unpaid leave from teaching to be with him, which meant my already precarious financial situation became catastrophic. Oh, I don't know exactly. Your father handled all that. Maybe 12,000. But it was worth every penny to see Chloe so joyful. $12,000. I felt a foundation of familial loyalty crack. You know, Sarah, I wish you would try to be more excited about this wedding, my mother said. Chloe feels you are not really supporting her. You haven't even confirmed if you'll be a bridesmaid. I can't afford the dress, Mom. I told you that. Well, maybe if you managed your money better, you wouldn't always be in this position. The words hung in the air like poison. Managed my money better. As if the crushing weight of medical debt was a personal failing, rather than the result of a family that chose fancy parties over their grandson's life. I hung up without saying goodbye. October brought a cold snap that seemed to settle into my bones. Leo was in and out of the hospital. The doctor spoke in hushed tones about weeks, not months. My parents visited occasionally, usually on their way to or from some wedding appointment. They would stay for 20 minutes, pat Leo's hand awkwardly, and leave with expressions of relief. The wedding invitations arrived. Heavy cardstock with gold embossing. I learned later that the final cost of Chloe's wedding was $215,000. The venue alone cost $75,000, roughly what I had begged for to save my son. The flowers were $14,000. The food was $38,000. The dress was $12,000. Every dollar amount felt like a knife wound. 2 weeks before the wedding, Leo's heart started giving out. The doctor pulled me aside and told me he had days left, maybe a week. I called my parents. My father answered, sounding distracted. Sarah, we're right in the middle of the rehearsal dinner preparations. Can this wait? Leo is dying, I said, my voice hollow. The doctor says days at most. There was a pause. Oh, Sarah, I am so sorry. Do you need us to come? My son was dying and he was asking if I needed them to come. Yes, I said. I think Leo would want to see you. They came the next morning with Starbucks cups in their hands. They stayed for 15 minutes. Leo was barely conscious. My father stood stiffly by the door, checking his watch twice. We have to go, my father finally said. The florist is expecting us at 11. For the centerpieces. It's important we get this right. There's no time for mistakes this close to the wedding. He seemed oblivious to the irony of his words. Standing in a room where the ultimate mistake, choosing flowers over family, was about to claim its final victim. Chloe never came to say goodbye. She was too busy with last-minute emergencies regarding her string quartet. Leo died on a Tuesday morning, 3 days before Chloe's wedding. He slipped away quietly in his sleep, his small hand in mine. My mother's first words after I called to tell her Leo was gone were, "Oh no. What terrible timing. Terrible timing." Because the funeral would interfere with the wedding preparations. That was the moment something fundamental shifted inside me. The grief was overwhelming, but beneath it, I felt a cold, patient understanding. They had made their choice. Now I would make mine. The funeral was scheduled for Friday, 2 days before the Sunday wedding. I didn't ask them to change the wedding date. But on Wednesday evening my mother called me. Sarah, honey, we need to talk about the funeral arrangements. Friday is really difficult for us. We have the wedding rehearsal that afternoon and the rehearsal dinner in the evening. Could you possibly move the funeral to Thursday or maybe next week? I stared at the wall. You want me to change my son's funeral because it conflicts with a wedding rehearsal? It's not just rehearsal, Sarah. It's the whole schedule. Jeffrey's family is flying in. Your father is giving a toast. Thursday would work so much better for everyone. Everyone would be more convenient if we buried my 7-year-old son a day early so you don't miss cocktail hour. Don't be dramatic, Sarah. Why can't you be more flexible? I hung up. The funeral stayed scheduled for Friday. It was a small service, just 25 people. We really have to go, my mother said, kissing my cheek. Chloe is having a crisis about the seating arrangements, but it was a lovely service, Sarah. Very tasteful. Sunday morning, Chloe's wedding day. My phone lit up with a text from my mother. Wish you were here to share this special day. Chloe looks absolutely stunning. I spent the day watching the images load in a family group chat. The venue in Tuscany photographed at golden hour. Chloe in her designer gown. The 5-tier cake. The champagne tower. $215,000 of celebration, while my son's body lay in a cemetery where I couldn't even afford a proper headstone. That night, alone in my studio apartment, I made myself a promise. This wasn't over. They thought their money and their self-centered priorities could insulate them from accountability. They were wrong. I pulled out a notebook and started writing down everything. Every conversation, every refusal, every dollar amount. Evidence. Proof. A record of everything that had been taken from Leo. For years past, I declared bankruptcy, wiping out my medical debt but destroying my credit. I moved to a cheaper apartment, took on tutoring jobs, and went back to school at night. I was promoted to assistant principal, and eventually principal of a successful middle school. I rebuilt myself from nothing. I also started saving money. I didn't know what I was saving for exactly, but I knew power required capital. Then I got an email from my Aunt Diane. "Sarah, I thought you should know your father lost his job 3 months ago. His entire retirement account was invested in his company stock, which collapsed when the company went bankrupt due to a massive fraud scandal. Your parents have lost almost everything. They're facing foreclosure on their house. They are too proud to ask for help, but they need it." I read the email, then searched the news. It was true. After building their comfortable life on the grave of my son's memory, they had lost it all. The universe had shifted, and suddenly I wasn't powerless anymore. A week later, there was a knock on my door. My father stood there. He looked older, grayer, diminished. "Sarah," his voice cracked. "Please, we need help. I lost my job. We are in serious financial trouble. The house is in foreclosure. We thought maybe you could contribute something. A loan, perhaps. I know you are doing better now. We wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate." "Desperate?" I said softly. "That's interesting. I remember being desperate once. How much do you need?" I finally asked. Hope flared in his eyes. "We owe about $82,000 on the house. If we could come up with that amount, we could keep it." $82,000. More than what could have saved Leo. They arrived exactly on time. They arranged themselves on my second-hand couch like children called before a principal. "You asked me for $82,000, I started. "We know it's a lot," my father said. "But we're prepared to offer collateral." I picked up a folder from the coffee table. "I have some questions first. Do you remember this conversation? May 16th, 4 years ago. I came to you and asked for $78,000 to pay for Leo's treatment." My mother's face went pale. "Sarah, we've been over this." I held up a printout of my crowdfunding page. $78,000. You told me you couldn't afford it, that you had to think about your retirement. My mother started crying. "Please, we know we failed you. We can only ask for your mercy now." "Mercy? I don't remember receiving much mercy when I begged you for help. When I sold everything I owned and ate ramen so I could afford medications. You didn't help Leo because you didn't want to. It wasn't about the money. You had the money. You proved that. You chose what mattered to you. So you won't help us?" My mother said flatly. "I didn't say that. I pulled out a check I had prepared. I am willing to give you $82,000. Hope bloomed on their faces. However, I continued, "There are conditions. The first condition is that you acknowledge here and now that you chose Chloe's wedding over Leo's life. That you had the money and refused to help. I want to hear you say it." They stared at me. Chloe looked at her parents. "You don't have to do this. She's trying to humiliate you." "Yes," I agreed. "Just like you humiliated me when I stood in your doorway with medical bills, and you told me to be realistic. So say it out loud." "We chose the wedding," my father finally said. His voice barely audible. "We had the money, and we chose to spend it on Chloe's wedding instead of Leo's treatment. And he died because we didn't help." I turned to Chloe. "And you? What's your role in this?" "I didn't know they refused to help," she said quickly. "Didn't you? You never wondered where the money for your elaborate wedding came from. You never questioned having your wedding 3 days after your nephew's funeral." She had no answer. "Here is the second condition," I continued. "You take this money, you save your house, and you never contact me again. No cards, no calls. You remove me from your lives completely the way you removed Leo from your memories." My father picked up the check. "We accept your conditions," he said, his voice hollow. They signed a formal agreement of no contact without even reading it. When they finished, I handed them the check. "Leave." They filed out silently. I closed the door behind them and locked it. Then I walked to my bedroom and opened my laptop. The $82,000 I had just given them was years of careful saving reduced to nothing. But I wasn't done. I opened my email and composed a message to my Aunt Diane. I attached a document, a complete timeline of events, including all the requests I made for help, the wedding expenses, the hospital bills, and the timeline showing how my parents attended a rehearsal dinner instead of Leo's funeral reception. Everything laid out in undeniable detail. I asked her to share it with everyone. I hit send. By tomorrow, their friends, their country club, and their church would know the truth. The check I gave them would clear. They would keep their house. But they would lose their reputation, their comfortable social standing, and the image they had carefully crafted. Everyone would know what they really valued. An hour later, Chloe was pounding on my door. I opened it but didn't let her in. "That email you sent. You are ruining their lives. You are destroying them out of spite." "No," I said calmly. "I am giving them exactly what they gave me. Consequences. They made choices and now they get to live with them. You are never going to let this go, are you? You really are heartless." "My heart broke 4 years ago and you weren't there to see it," I replied. "So don't talk to me about heartless. You don't get to use that word." I closed the door on my biological family for the last time. Over the next few months, I heard what happened. My parents were socially ostracized. Friends stopped calling. They kept their house, but it became a prison. My mother developed anxiety issues, and Chloe moved to another state to put distance between herself and the scandal. As for me, I continued building my life. I traveled to places Leo would have loved and scattered his ashes in beautiful locations around the world. The money I gave my parents was worth it, not because they deserved help, but because it gave me closure. I proved I was the better person. I showed mercy, and then I walked away, leaving them to live with the weight of their choices. In the end, revenge wasn't about cruelty. It was about justice. Have you ever faced a choice like this? Would you have given them the money to ensure their ultimate humiliation, or would you have let them lose everything on their own? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story compelling, please subscribe to my channel for more.